Does the separation of power really exist? And how does it function?
As I indicated at the beginning, what is democracy? We moved away from having monarchies and autocracies and authoritarian, yeah? So the model of Montesquieu said, hey, you have to be very aware that you don't put all the powers of a country in one hand. So there are three powers: the legislative power to make the rules, the executive power to execute the rules, and the judicial power to look at the rules and the execution of it, if how it's going. Yes, three pillars: judiciary, executive, and the law. Yes, legislator. Your question is, do we have a debt system in place? Partly. Why I say partly? We followed the Constitution of the Netherlands. In 1848, the Constitution of the Netherlands was amended. And so we don't have a legislator that is only parliament, as I indicated before. A legislation is in generally drafted in collaboration with government, the executive. The executive government prepares a law and it goes to parliament. Parliament looks at it, may amend it, and approves it, right? Of course, in between, you have other things like the High Council of the Council of Advice looks at it and advice of it, blah, blah, blah. So that separation is not 100% according to Montesquieu's thinking. So you have an overlap there. Nevertheless, Parliament also has the right to initiate law separate from the executive. And then the judiciary, indeed, is completely separated. Some people ask, but since you have a constitutional court, isn't the constitutional court then sitting on the seat of the legislator? No, the constitutional court cannot amend a law. The constitutional court can review the law and say, hey, listen, you missed the point there, or whatever. That is an extra security.
What recommendations would you make in order to further improve the democratic institution of the country?
If you look at the democratic institutions, I would not only talk about parliament, government, the executive, and the judiciary. I will look at a bigger picture whereby I also look at the people, because our democracy starts with the people. And if you ask me, based on my experiences, as informator, as ombudsman, name it, I concluded that not just the institutions have to be taken care of, but the people. Bring knowledge to the people. Because if the knowledge of the people about our governmental system, starting from the schools, we can never have a proper functioning democracy, because we can talk about parliament, but if candidates postulating themselves to be members of parliament do not understand the system and have not learned how our system works from the time they were in elementary school, they are not fully, I will say, equipped. So I would not look only at the institutions, but I will look at the whole community. Another thing that I would say in the institutions, And they have nothing to do with the law. It is with how do you operate your institutions. I believe that we have to be more critical in our institutions by self-assess the institution, let's say at least yearly. And we have a lot of catch up to do. So we have to do a lot of regular leadership and governing training. Yes, not because you are a minister or a member of parliament that you know it all. I have a PhD in law and I'm still learning every day. You have to continuously upgrade yourself. Keep in touch with what is happening in the world. Very important, something that I would like to advise if you or recommend and for our institutions, look at enforcement and control of laws and regulation. What I would like to improve in Parliament, that they establish a proper code of ethics. I think they even have it already. However, we can implement rules, but don't police them or don't comply with them. Or, then why we make the rules? What are the consequences if you trespass the code of conduct? Yes? Those are the, in that code of conduct, for example, something clear. What are the consequences for non-performing MPs? You understand? So, in fact, my recommendations to improve our democratic institutions has nothing to do with the law. It is compliance with the law. Procedures that are there, and apply them, and police them yourself. We don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. So oftentimes you say, yeah, but Parliament doesn't make laws. As I said, you don't make a law for your children of 5, 6, and 8 years that they have to be home at 12 if they're not going out anyhow. So infantilize and work on it. And ultimately, I think in a long list of recommendations that I could have, the High Councils of State, the Ombudsman, the General Audit Chamber, they are provided for in the Constitution to assist Parliament with their job. Yeah? So the Ombudsman looks at good governance, at propriety. How is government dealing with the citizens that the parliamentarians represent? So the reports of the Ombudsman are reports to help Parliament, the MPs, to their job. The reports of the General Audit Chamber, they look at how government is spending the money if they follow procedures, and they make reports. Parliament has to use those reports to assist them in doing their job. Those are some recommendations to improve our democratic institutions.
What would be the issues that you foresee that St. Martin would have to focus on for the next decade?
Based on the vision plan, look at that, what are priorities, but education, yes? Capacity building. We have a huge shortage of capacity. We have not focused and prioritized how we send our students away to study. So we have a void for certain functions, both in and outside government, yes? Whereby, yes, we can complain that, for example, foreigners coming in to do certain jobs, especially high-ranking jobs, but we did not consciously worked on capacity building. So one of the very important things for the next decade is structurally and strategically work on your capacity for the country. I want to refer back again to the vision plan. We make plans and they are papers in a desk. Why did we go about 2 years with help from abroad, spending a lot of money on a vision plan? And all that vision plan is doing, sitting in desk. I would love to see campaign programs linked to that vision plan, because there is where we're looking at our long-term planning and strategy. So my issues for the next decade is get away from election to election. Let's look at long-term. Things like investment climate, regional contact. We have to look at various ways to strengthen our regional contact rather than looking over the ocean to the European part of the kingdom. And in doing that, looking at our long-term strategies, we should keep keen eye on global developments, because we all are experiencing how fast the world is changing.
The parliament and government are bound by law. Put this into perspective for us. And if not maintained, what are the consequences?
Compliance is important. Not only the citizens are bound by law, parliament and the government, the executive, and the judiciary are bound by laws. Yeah? A judge cannot go and sit on the bench and decide he or she develop a new procedure because they think, it has to fit within the law. The prosecutor cannot invent something new that is outside the law. Of course, the law cannot define every single behavior. Yes, that's why we have a court to help interpret the law. However, the framework for the different areas in our society are stipulated in law. So that means when Parliament gets up to, let's say, discuss a law, they cannot decide to do that outside the legal framework. There are procedures for it. If Parliament decide to anything they are doing, they have to look at the law. We saw over the past years how certain members of Parliament had to face the effects of the law. Yes? And whether our opinion is it's fair or not fair, it is the law. So that is the premise. When a minister sits, the minister cannot decide, hey, I like you, I don't like you. They are bound by the law. How do I go about giving a business license? I cannot give you a business license because I like you and the other person, I'm not doing it. Of course, and there is, of course, I see your face, because how do you comply with the law? You are bound by the law, yeah? How do you twist the law? And there you have the circle. Parliament has to look at it, hey, and when the minister is doing that, or if the ombudsman or general audit chamber is saying that, let me investigate and find out how did government apply the law, because government is also bound by the law.
What is the importance of maintaining transparency in elections?
Very important. Yes? And transparency and integrity are two very important pillars for any democratic society. The rules have to be clear, as I said, transparent, and they have to be executed with integrity. In elections, it's one vote, one voice. People don't realize how important their voice is. I'm always saying the beach is a massive, it's a massive structure. However, that massive structure compiles of single small grains of sand. Each single grain of sand is important. Yeah. So transparency in the voting system, there should be no doubt about the outcome. Has it been fair? Has it been proper? Has it been, there are discussions, are people really making use of their own conscious and looking at how they cast that vote, or has that vote been bought? And I'm saying, as I said at the beginning, the responsibility of who we have as Parliament, and by extension, who Parliament, our representative, nominate as minister, is our responsibility. Because if we decide to sell our votes, we give up that right. Because whoever I sold the vote to, tomorrow I can't hold you accountable. Whether tomorrow I realize that you don't know anything about Parliament, of government, I can't hold you accountable. I sold my vote to you anyhow. Yeah? So transparency and integrity is important. And Charity, in this conversation, especially in the time that we are now, the season of election, I cannot emphasize enough the importance of the role of the citizen. There is a saying, a country gets the government they deserve, not because they deserve it, because they elected it.
How important is it for one to exercise their right to vote?
You have to make conscious decisions when you go and vote, decisions for the next 4 years. Remember, you cannot fire the MP. Yeah? That's why, and I'm saying it publicly, I've said it publicly, that's why you had a lot of music chairs. You know, today I sit on this chair, tomorrow I sit on this chair. This time I'm with this party, tomorrow I jump ship and I sit with that party, and we can see that. Yes? So the task of the citizen, the role of the citizen becomes very important. The citizens have to realize that they have to choose people that they can trust. That while I voted for you to represent me because I believed in the goals of this party, and I assumed that you are a team player and that you are subscribing to the philosophy of this party, and I give you my trust, yeah? If after I give you my trust, you decide, no, I'm going to another party, you understand? So the public have to understand the importance of their vote, that it has to be a conscious decision. We are not playing Dolly House. We are talking about the well-being of our country, not as a country by itself. We are an island, but we are not drifting in the ocean just by ourselves. We are part of the global community.
Based on the Constitution, are members of Parliament allowed to declare themselves independent? Is it legally permissible? And is it time for St. Martin to evaluate this issue?
Is it legally permissible? As I explained how the law works. The law gives a framework. The law cannot decide on everybody's individual behavior. According to the Constitution doesn't subscribe to parties, but to members of Parliament. Members of Parliament take an oath because the Constitution subscribes that a member of Parliament is elected individually to represent the people. The Constitution doesn't talk about parties. However, the electoral and laws, they talk about parties because politics is only a mean to get to governing a country. The issue is, can MPs jump ship? In fact, the law doesn't prohibit it. So yes, it is all about personal accountability. Yes, and that accountability is not properly upheld. Accountability, loyalty, yes, understanding what governing is, what Parliament is all about. It's not about me, it is about we. Yes? And in this, while the Constitution doesn't talk about parties, there are electoral laws that provide for parties. So, parties have to create a system of accountability because accountability and loyalty. If you are in my team, in this team, I may assume that you are loyal to our principles, to our goals, to our vision for the country. So if you decide that you no longer subscribe to our vision, to our goals, I believe that parties have to build in their own mechanism how to deal with the consequences if a person is not loyal. And I have been speaking, I've been giving training and, to different parties. I have, as a community service. And this issue has been indeed brought to the table. And I said, hey, you have to review your statutes and look how you can deal with it within. Because before it escalates on the floor of Parliament, which is not the place where such things have to escalate, they have to be spoken about internally within parties. Because in fact, the people did not elect MPs for that charade in that high prestigious entity named Parliament.
What are the obstacles we face with good governance, and what can we do to improve?
It goes back, and with my, these are questions I've pondered upon a lot. When I was ombudsman, that was my task. Look at good governance, look at propriety, and it comes to the basic understanding what government is all about. If, for example, when we got in 10-10-10, the institution of ombudsman, when I left office at the end of 2018, I thought it was very interesting in one of the farewell speeches that somebody, I think it was the Prime Minister or one of the, somebody said, we never knew the word propriety until we had the ombudsman. That means if for generations, for decades, as a society, we did not know the word propriety, which is an important pillar of good governance, I think I give the answer. It boils down to education. We have our education system does not teach children from the age of 6 coming up what government is all about, what good governance is all about. By the time, in fact, the child reaches grade 6, getting ready to go to secondary education, they should know the system. They should know the basics, what you look for in government. So that is, in fact, what I would say about good governance.
What would be your advice to first-time candidates running for a parliamentary seat?
To really do your homework. That is the basic. Do your homework. You cannot learn on the job. You have to go in and hit the ground running.